the 50th in the series of programs. So I think thanks to all the people who have been part of this effort in making this grow and evolve, and we expect continued support. We crossed the 100,000 mark by way of subscribers. We like to see the 250,000 mark, hitting the numbers pretty soon. But looking forward to an exciting next phase.
Sir, we mentioned in yesterday's hangout that Texas had sued the 4 states in the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. But after that, we also had hinted that many other states may join. And looks like several states have joined Texas in this case. And can you please bring us an update on where things stand right now and all the different twists and turns that are happening in the United States elections?
Well, I think as we approach towards the so-called D-Day, now the D-Day has been pushed to January 20th, and the safe harbor and other dates have become quite irrelevant in a very kind of contentious elections. So the major breakthrough yesterday, we had about Texas and potentially 3 other states or 4 states. Now it has escalated to Texas plus 17 states. Filing a petition against the 4 battleground states, which have, according to them, not followed the due process, which was followed by the rest of the country. Now, this is to SCOTUS. So the claim is that the 4 states' election should be invalidated. That is the claim that they have presented to the Supreme Court. President Trump's team has also sought what they call as an intervention into this, namely that they would like to become part of this effort. The reason being they have been contesting at the various state levels and also actively engaging the legislatures in terms of instead of 4, actually 6 states where Trump and his legal team have been involved. To say that this whole process has got has a lack of transparency, consistency, and also, validity of the ballot count, because, they made a case in Pennsylvania of X million votes coming after the cutoff date. They made a case in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, where there has been lack of transparency and potential duplicate and incorrect votes being counted. They made a case in Michigan, which is to say, whether Dropbox ballots were backdated with a USPS person filing an affidavit that he was asked to do that. So the whole concept is that there is real anecdotal evidence. The Democrats would argue these are allegations and affidavits. There is no tangible evidence that the Republican team has presented in a coherent manner to justify their claims. It seems to be lots of wishful thinking that has been presented. Anyway, it has escalated its way. The 17 states joining the president joining the 17 states, and 16 states joining Texas in filing the litigation is kind of unprecedented in the U.S. electoral history. One thing is very clear: the integrity of the election system has been clearly breached. At least the trust has been breached. That's fairly evident based on all the stuff that one is seeing. While this goes on, you have a parallel stream of work that is going on with Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell. That activity goes on in terms of the whole architecture of the Dominion voting systems and the integrity of the Dominion voting systems, and whether the systems were compromised and whether the systems were left open for breaches in some of the battleground states with connectivity to internet, etc., etc. And even a video floating around with USB drives being inserted in shifting the allocation of the votes. So this is the law of the land as we see. But I think we are reaching what I call as a penultimate step. And there are 2 more things that I can add to this, but I'll wait and pass for you to intervene, sir.
So there is some evidence, I think we mentioned this a few hangouts ago, about people trying to do a simulation run on these machines, and they just put the same number of votes on Biden and Trump, and then the result was slightly different. One of the questions that have been asked is the system, this particular software system, was assigning a floating point variable for the vote cast. For example, if I cast a vote, the vote was 1.00, and people were wondering why would you have a floating point to represent your vote. I mean, your vote is either 1 or 0. You either vote for A guy or vote for B. So these kinds of questions are being asked. And have you heard anything about that, sir? I think Sidney Powell was trying to bring some evidence on that too.
Yes, I think that the simulation run pointed out 1.13 allocation to Biden and 0.87 allocation to President Trump. That's the number that I have seen floated around the media. And they were trying to establish that the software simulation in this pattern of allocation had this variability. Now, you have outlined the technical point, which is the floating point register, so nothing has come out, out of that, because you're still going through various pieces. One of the contestations is this particular point. Dorothy Morgan in Nevada contested that there seems to be weird shift in patterns. What is causing that on the systemic side? Unclear. Then in Michigan or Georgia, you had this USB drive photograph being inserted and allocating the votes to one specific candidate versus the other. Evidence was presented. When you have 80,000, votes, you get 7,000 votes to Trump and 73,000. They feel that this abnormality is quite unique or quite disturbing in terms of the pattern. So whether it is systemic cost when they insert the USB drives. Then Dr. Nas made a presentation that the system can be breached if it is connected to an open network from remote locations, and you can begin to alter the patterns. There was then this conversation that happened in Georgia where you said, hey, we are down by 100,000 or something, and a set of activities commenced, and that video was shown. There is an infographic which I've shared with PGurus, which has been published yesterday. What happened in Georgia and what went wrong? Whether one agrees or disagrees with it, that infographic details, very specific activities that triggered in Georgia. So to your point, sir, that part of the whole systemic part of the investigation has not been addressed, and the questions still remain as to how that is going to be validated.
Sir, I'm just thinking loud, sir, and you can agree with me or you can disagree with me. I am a member of the Supreme Court judiciary, and I look at this whole thing and I say, wait, as per law, for 22 months from the time the election ballots were cast, all the votes have to be preserved. So I'm going to push the reset button on these 6 states and order manual recount on every one of these states. In your opinion, sir, I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm just asking you, in your opinion, would that bring out the real tallies of each of the these states for Biden and Trump? I mean, we are setting aside the entire software out of the way. Would that be possible?
Well, it's possible, but I don't know whether it will generate a similar, exactly a different outcome. This has been attempted, at least it was done in Nevada, it was done in Arizona, it was done in Wisconsin. I think to some extent it was done in Michigan. The problem is on 3 fronts. One, if the ballots have been backdated, those backdated ballots would be still sitting there as valid votes. Okay, that's number one. Number two is if there are any duplicate votes, the duplicate votes would probably be picked up and isolated. Then you have a third situation, which is namely some of the stuff that one has noticed, which is whether the people really asked for absentee ballots or whether the absentee ballots were delivered, incognito. If it was delivered along those lines, then whether there was ballot harvesting that took place. This is one of the claims that's been made by the people. So I just don't know. The mere recount is going to give a conclusive kind of an outcome that basically says one or the other party is satisfied or both parties are satisfied. So I think this whole process of recount of bad votes does not produce good outcome.
Thanks for clarifying that, sir, because it's always easy to think that, oh, okay, why not we do this? And then everything is fair and square. And I think we've seen that whatever be the manipulation that is alleged, it is much more subtle. And therefore, that needs to be looked into in greater depth. Viewers, this session of ours is going to be a little bit longer because we have very compelling data to share with you. The second information or the second big news that happened yesterday was that the Delaware US attorney confirmed that Hunter Biden is under investigation for tax and money laundering, and there has been a lot of other states that were also, like for example, the Southern District of New York was also looking into Hunter Biden's finances, and evidently now everything is brought under the Delaware U.S. attorney who's commencing the investigation. Sir, can you please bring us up to date on why this was not done prior to the elections, and now have the elections having been finished, suddenly everything is starting to come out?
Well, I think that question was answered by a reputed authority. I can't kind of explain who that is, whether it is the Attorney General's office itself. But they said that this could, anything that is done on the eve of the elections, on the threshold of the elections, can potentially sway the voting patterns. So generally, they don't do this on the eve. If they have started, they would have started, 6 months ago or, some reasonable time where there is a fair amount of data that has flown in so that there is no subjective bias that is shifted in the voters' minds. Right. So therefore, that's one element of it. That's the significant element as to why they withheld. And Hunter Biden himself has confirmed that he is under the investigation for some of his tax and financial transactions as it relates to his Chinese and Ukrainian affairs. So therefore, he has also acknowledged that there is a background, there is an investigation currently in progress. I am told that this thing goes back to 2018 in terms of the analysis, and whether it translates itself into a grand jury type of an investigation, it remains open to speculation. But the fact that both parties have acknowledged that there is an investigation underway, and Hunter Biden has made a huge claim, which is to say that he is satisfied that his records are straight. He's satisfied that he can justify any investigation that comes through, and he will come out clean. So he has also made that statement yesterday.
Sir, from the news report that I'm reading, it also appears as though FBI is in possession of the laptop whose contents allegedly showed up in a post in New York Post. Is that true, sir?
Well, I think that the New York Post is the one which revealed this whole laptop story. And if you recall, the whole controversy stirred up because Twitter blocked that specific post for a period of time. That became a subject of huge debate in the House Judiciary Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee hearings with, what's his name, Ted Cruz taking up a very active stand against Jack Dorsey on that. So now it is confirmed, or it is being confirmed, that the laptop is in possession of FBI, and they are, retrieving the files. There was also one of the ex-colleagues or friends or associates of Hunter Biden coming out and making a statement in the Fox News in the interview that he is aware of these activities and he's aware of this laptop. So these two incidents, they withheld until a period of time where the elections are over, and then it has gained steam. Now, there is one little adjacent stuff around this, which is namely, YouTube has taken an extraordinary decision. The word that is used is an extraordinary decision on December 9th, that they will completely eliminate or remove YouTube videos that alleges some kind of widespread fraud took place in the elections. Why would they do it, and what prompts them to make this announcement in the middle? One wonders as to what exactly is the role of these specific platforms. Now, you actually can do, I think I pointed out that you actually can do Google searches and you can do certain things. You will find the data that is curated comes up is controversial. Now, Google can take a position which is to say, look, this is any other content. They say that they are a platform. In the Judiciary Committee hearings, they say they're a platform. They're not a publisher. So therefore, if a publisher says, this is what it is, and they can always curate and place certain content well above, so that gives a perceptive opinion that these are kind of the right results for a query that is being launched on the Google platform. The second, these social media platforms now have added fact-checking machines or fact-checking models. Now, whether the fact-checking models are objective, for every time you read something, you say that, please check the election results, please check the election results, and so on. Now, if you're using, for example, Reuters, or if you're using, let's say, New York Times, as opposed to New York Post, if you use New York Post 2 times, if you use Reuters 2 times, if you use, I don't know, Epoch News or One America Network News few times, then at least it gives an impression to the people there is some objectivity in the assessment. But when you tweak towards a very specific news publications, which are identified as biases towards a specific policy and view, it begs the question what exactly these tech platforms are doing in corroborating in presenting the information which people are looking for on the social platforms.
Thanks for clarifying that, sir. And viewers, as we said before, and we've been saying, we are not taking any sides. We are just telling you the way it is, because in this very high sensitive, high voltage coverage of these elections, people are showing what they want to show and the other side is not being shown. Is everything fine with Republicans? Probably not. Whatever the Democrats come up with, sure, you can hear that also from us. At this point, what we are telling you is what is happening in the various courts and in various investigative agencies. Sir, let's take a look at the next big item that we are going to talk about today, and that is the alleged involvement of an alleged Chinese spy in honey trapping several politicians of the United States. The person in question, her name is Christine Fang, also called as Fang, and there was a huge story in a website called Axios, Axios, which talked about the presence of this person. The title is Exclusive: Suspected Chinese Spy Targeted California Politicians. Now, Axios is known for short, quick stories, but this is a long one. It has a lot of information about what has happened, where all this person was seen with. And the interesting thing is this lady, Fang, was allegedly arrived into the United States as a student in 2012. One of the things that comes out in this article is how quickly she got herself involved in the local politics in and around the Bay Area. The people that she has been photographed with are actually today Congressmen. One is Eric Swalwell, I think. I'm trying to get the first name right. And yes, Eric Swalwell. Now, here I'm just going to read a small excerpt from this Axios article. Fang took part in fundraising activity for Swalwell's 2014 re-election campaign, according to a Bay Area political operative and a current US intelligence official. Swalwell's office was directly aware of these activities on its behalf, the political operative said. That same political operative who witnessed Fang fundraising on Swalwell's behalf found no evidence of illegal contributions. Now, the problem with this whole thing is that Swalwell was at the front and center of alleging that the 2016 elections were influenced by Russia. Whereas now it is slowly coming out that Eric Swalwell himself may have received contributions that happen to be, whose origin seems to point to a different country. So evidently, when it became apparent that this person, Fang Fang, could be a Chinese spy, the FBI alerted Eric Swalwell, and evidently there was some sort of a ceasing or cessation of communication, and this lady left United States in 2015 before more things could be unearthed. So between that period 2012 and 2015, she was also a volunteer at the then congressional candidate Khanna, because he fought for the Fremont seat in 2014 elections and he lost that time. He came back to win it in 2016. So there is also the possibility that there was an involvement with Khanna. Now, there was specific questions asked of Eric Swalwell, and there are three links that we are going to publish along with this YouTube. You can read those things, you can watch those videos, you can come up with your own conclusions on what really happened in this case. Now, FBI also has two other instances where they have actually caught two Midwestern mayors. By Midwestern, I'm talking about those cities who happen to be in the Midwest of United States of America, this Chicago area. There is a region called as Midwest. You can look it up on the map. What could be these things? We are not taking any names, but FBI apparently has caught a couple of mayors having sex with this particular individual, which is what makes them to believe that this person was a honey trap. Now, is this going to be only one way in one case and not in the other? We don't know. But that is why we have a feeling that there was massive intrusion of, I should rephrase that, there was perhaps massive intrusion and influence of Chinese money in all the elections that may have taken place, at least in specific areas such as the Bay Area, because that is where you see a significant amount of Asian immigrants. We don't know if this is going to come out, it's going to happen, how long it's going to take before the truth actually emerges. But certainly this cannot be good news for the Democrats, because Bay Area is a heavily Democratic area, and I can tell you, I think even in 2020 the Democrats kind of swept the slate in and around Bay Area districts. Most of the elected representatives were all Democrats. So this is going to perhaps bring about a change in the way people look at politics in general, especially for California, California, especially the Bay Area, which is where many of the big companies, Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple, everybody's headquartered. That's where I live too. And now suddenly we are now seeing pictures of Fang Fang with many people. Some of them I have met myself. So, it's come as a shock that there could have been such massive interference. It's been known that, foreign governments do use these kind of methods. This is not something new, but the amount of money that has come in and the amount of influence that has been peddled in these things is really mind-blowing. And for Mr. Eric Swalwell to turn around and accuse Trump of the very things that he is alleged to have done, that's where the thing really rankles. So this is just the beginning of this story. A lot more stuff is coming out, so we have to wait and see how this plays out. In fact, some of the political careers of Democratic politicians could be on the line here. We have to wait and see how this plays out. But whatever it is, this certainly cannot be good for the Democratic Party. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think that you really have done a great job in giving the extensive details in terms of the scope of the activity. What is also disturbing is, which has been brought by Kevin McCarthy, is he was in the Intelligence Committee, House Intelligence Committee. So the question that has been raised is whether the Democratic congressional leadership was aware of this connection? If so, why it has not been brought to the public? Why it has not been brought to the forum? Because it is a breach of national security. So that question has just been, after whatever these investigations in the last 24 to 48 hours, especially the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is also, by the way, from California, he's from Southern California, has raised this specific issue. So I think it is quite disturbing that yesterday we witnessed, as a corollary to this, a series of activities. Secretary Pompeo going public and saying, especially singling out certain universities where the influence of the Chinese money in terms of the specific biases in the policy kind of discussion as part of the think tank, how far they are compromising the U.S. interests. I think that's one thing has gone public. We can again share that specific link so people can see it. Then another, either from Georgia or one of the states, the representative has raised an issue around the compromises in Georgetown University. Specifically, he has named Georgetown University as one of the vehicles. The United States government also yesterday banned this Mr. Wan Kwok Kai, who is a leader of the triad, who seems to participate in many of the CCP-related activities and with close proximity. Now, we're not saying that it was the United States, but it could have been all around the world. But he was also picked up. So there's a broad set of activities which may have been under investigation, which may have been, brewing in the background. You also saw some of the changes that took place in terms of during the intervening period between the time the elections called and right today as we speak. There is more information is coming out by way of the intelligence outcomes that is being looked at. So I think your coverage only around Fang Fang reaffirms that there seems to be a broad set of activities. People may forget that there was some issue when people in the Houston embassy of China were sent out. This is before they could see a lot of files being burnt. That thing remained open and shut because raised it, and then the elections came on, it got suppressed. And then what happened to that investigation, nobody knows. So there is a broad set of activities, and I think we covered yesterday Do Dingxing talking about, from Renmin University of Beijing, talking about, how they had a deep influence on some of the Wall Street outcomes. And we have another person talking about, potentially taking stakes in some of the companies and progressively in Wall Street firms, taking the stake to a significant kind of a number through private equity companies and other forms of entities where they have a direct or indirect stake. So I think where this will go, we don't know, but clearly there is a whole swag of issues around this intelligence part of it.
Thank you, sir. And now we cast a glance at the global news. The first one that we're going to lead off is with what is happening in Pakistan. Now, viewers, I have been saying this over several programs about how the minorities are in danger in Pakistan. The minorities comprise of Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, Parsis and Jain and Buddhists. There are very small amounts of the last two, but there are some elements. There are some people who are stuck in Pakistan. I can only say they were stuck because they perhaps were too poor to migrate during the time of partition. Now, what people say is there are still close to 7 million minorities that are still in Pakistan, and some very disturbing news has come out, and I'm going to read this thing out to you. And China buying Hindu Christian women. Pak is marketing Hindu and Christian women as concubines to China. US diplomat, let me just get that thing right. This is a person that has worked with people from various countries who has been following. Sir, can you tell us a little bit more about it? I just lost my thread, so I forgot the name of the person. If you have it in front of you, perhaps you can take it and then...
Samuel Greenback.
Yes.
The ambassador Samuel Greenback. has gone public, and he's effectively stated Pakistan is marketing. I'm reading from my mind. I'm not, quote unquote. This is not a quote unquote.
Yeah.
Samuel Brownback has basically stated that there is a consistent and systematic pattern where Pakistan is marketing Hindu and Christian women as concubines and forced brides to the Chinese. Well, this was pointed out earlier in the Uyghur scenario, right? Now we are beginning to see this truth kind of come out. This, whatever reasons it was masked up until this point of time. Now, if you recall some of the discussions that we made yesterday, that India was targeted by councils with democratic majority as discriminatory in terms of its CAA, NRC policies, especially CAA, and also about minority protection, around the CAA piece. Now, here we are, where a nation which was to some extent the sympathizers from there, and I would also say many of the people from either the Indian American, other types of heritages involved in these council discussions, but they have been very silent on these activities that have taken place in the region where it has not been targeted. Here, Samuel Brownback has talked about China and Pakistan. So have you ever seen China and Pakistan feature in United States in discussions around human rights violations, right? Biden says we want human rights in United Nations. So why is it that the human rights violation only applies to India and certain countries, but does not apply to these two countries who seem to be in favor? Because when you look at what is happening in Asia, China is asserting its right around Asia, saying now Biden is likely to be in power. So therefore, we have open sesame in terms of policies. All of a sudden, we want to be in TPP. We want to be discussing with Japan. We want to be discussing with Korea. So the point that I'm trying to make, there seems to be a linear extension between some of these issues. This is for the first time Ambassador Sam Brownback has taken the courage to put the issue in public.
And currently, he is the U.S. diplomat for religious freedom, Sam Brownback. And here is the next news item, sir. U.S. is going to sell F-15 and F-18 fighter jets to Indonesia.
Well, it's very fascinating because United States and India, and now yesterday we talked about, Britain HMS Albion landing into Yokosuka harbor in Japan. So here we are now, Secretary Pompeo has been extremely busy. And remember, Indonesia's defense minister became the first defense minister from Indonesia to be received and honored in White House, as well as he had the meetings with the U.S. Armed Forces and U.S. Defense Department and so on. So it's fascinating that what Indonesia is saying is protecting my sovereignty is of importance, and my sovereignty can be protected by people who are our natural allies. And where is the threat coming from? The threat is actually coming from China in the South China Sea, encroaching into the sovereign waters of Indonesia and putting the fishermen at risk. So besides the land pinching, it's also about the economic outcome that is a natural thing for the Indonesians. If we recall, again, we covered in this topic that the Indonesian army has advanced its attack force of the Navy forward to one of those islands. I forget the name of the island. They moved to the island. So now we see that the F-16s and the F-15s are being sold because most of these attacks either come from naval side or comes from the air, which is why drones and planes were also given to our friends in Taiwan, right? Because that's something that they had a air intrusion, so that's been given. So what you're seeing is, as this intervening period moves on, many of these countries are waking up and stitching deals with a regime that is favorable to protecting the sovereignty of the nations in the South China Sea.
And U.S. has also banned 6 more Chinese companies and 4 ships that were carrying cargo allegedly to North Korea. There is also a very detailed article in, I think, the Epoch Times that talks about the China's investment in North Korea. What exactly is going on there? A very interesting read, sir. So, can you shed a little bit of light on this six companies and what is the reason why the United States has banned them, sir?
Well, I think that these six companies are engaged in business activities against the sanctions. North Korea has, to some extent, limited kind of sanctions. They seem to be, ferreting potentially, in my view, defense material. That's, though it is not official, potentially defense material. While right throughout the entire process, while the negotiations were going on, with North Korea, I know during the Trump's period there was some calm, but they say 90% of the imports came from China to North Korea. So there seems to be what they say is a tacit kind of an understanding, potentially to make sure that the oppressed people don't kind of come across the border, because China shares the border with North Korea onto the to the Chinese side. So there was a tacit kind of support. It's also, as everybody knows, that North Korea is a strategic block in the chessboard to combat South Korea against the Western allies. So you have these six companies that you're alluding to. Only thing that I can kind of state is that it's possible that they are involved in activities which is harmful.
And thank you very much, sir. That brings us to a close on today's segment. We couldn't cover markets and tech today. We just ran out of time. And viewers, your support means a lot to us. Please subscribe to our channel. We just crossed a major milestone. We have crossed 100,000. Now we are galloping towards 200,000. If you like our programming, if you like our content, may we request you to please ask a friend or a member of your family to subscribe to our channel so that we can reach that milestone as quickly as possible. As always, sir, Sridharji, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and we will be back tomorrow, same time, same locations on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And thanks for following. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you.